Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where after both Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping reaffirmed the border agreement, defense sources have now told CNN News18, giving details of the de-escalation along the line of actual control. Now in Depsang, both the sides will go back to their old 2020 positions, is what top defense sources are telling CNN News18, and patrolling will now resume on all points in that area. In Demchok as well, there will be a return to the 2020 positions and patrolling will resume. Now, the strength of the patrol parties are still under discussion. Local commanders are meeting almost on a daily basis to implement the decisions and are also discussing the aspects of on-ground implementation when it comes to this agreement at the line of actual control. That is the big piece of breaking news that's coming in. Details from top defense sources on the implementation of the LAC agreement on the ground. And what we are learning is that in Depsang, which is one of the key friction points, now both the sides will go back to their old 2020 positions and patrolling will resume on all points in that area. In Demchok as well, there will be a return to the 2020 positions and patrolling will resume. But the strength of the patrol parties, we were getting to learn that there would be about 15 patrol parties on each side, 15 personnel when it comes to the patrol parties on each side. But those details are still being worked out by the corps commanders from both the Indian and the Chinese side. The local commanders are meeting almost on a daily basis. To get more details on the entire LAC agreement as well as the implementation challenges on the ground, I'm joined by my colleague Akash Sharma, who's getting us all these details from top defense sources. Akash, over to you.
So, Ashman, you see, we know that after 2020, we had several friction points with China. But, a few years back, we had disengagement on 4 of the points. And remaining points were in Depsang Plains and in Demchok. In Demchok, we have only 1 point where along the stream, the Chinese troops have erected some tents. And in response to that, Indian troops have also erected some tents. But as far as Depsang is concerned, we have multiple patrol points that were blocked by Chinese initially because they had erected their tents on Y-axis. Y-axis is basically the road towards patrol point 10, 11, 11A, 12 and 13. So Indian troops used to opt, the Y-axis, one axis of the Y-axis junction where, they used to go for the patrol. But Chinese erected, their tents at both the axes of Y-axis and also at patrol point 10. So they blocked the patrol points for the Indian troops. And this was the reason why we used to say that we have a friction point, because in response to these tents, Indian troops also erected some points, and Chinese and Indian soldiers were actually standing eye to eye and, in front of each other. And this is why we say that there was an engagement and, people were working for disengagement. Now, as far as defense sources are concerned, so they are saying that both in Depsang and Demchok, we have reached to an agreement where both the sides are ready to go back to their previous positions, previous 2020 positions. It means the Chinese will remove their tents, that is at 3 different places in Depsang and at 2 different places in Demchok. Similarly, Indian troops will also remove their tents that were erected in response to the tents by Chinese. Now, after this removal, we know about the patrolling and there are several sort of details that are being reported. But as of now, top defense sources are telling us that as far as strength and the whole design of patrol is concerned, so it has not been decided yet. In fact, as you rightly mentioned, the local commanders, not the corps commander, but the local commanders are meeting on a regular basis, and these commanders are somewhere working on the modalities of the on-ground implementation of what has agreed upon. Now, important to mention that earlier we had, 6 to 7 friction points, which includes the Galwan point, patrol point 14, Hot Spring point, of course, the PP17 as well, and, total 4 points were there, Hot Spring point, Galwan point, and also point, finger point as well. So, after, a lot of deliberation, and in fact, the corps commander level talks, we know that how it was decided that we'll be implementing buffer zone strategy where no soldier will come in a demarcated, area, and a buffer zone will be created. Now, deliberations are also going on as to how they will implement the patrolling for these points. And this is the reason why I said that, commanders, in fact, the local commanders are meeting on a regular basis. Now, most likely, the strength and the deployment that we have in the area is going to continue this winter, because officials on ground say that this is a lengthy process. They are still deliberating on the design that they have to follow. And yes, one fact is that they have reached to an agreement for the patrolling, and patrolling will of course lead to the disengagement. But they're also eyeing on de-escalation and de-induction, where they'll pull back their troops back. So a lot of things are there, a lot of modalities are there, and on-ground officials, military officials are still working on it. But yes, it's a positive news, and they are saying that it has started on a positive note, and that's why, they are expecting that things will be back to normal.
Absolutely. So no timeline in place, but clearly the pieces are moving on the ground at the line of actual control. Thank you, Akash.